You can go to one country and feel like a total billionaire, but then you hop across the border and suddenly your wallet feels a whole lot lighter. It's honestly one of the weirdest things about traveling. Imagine you're hanging out with your friend Bob. He's from the US, and he's used to using dollars for everything. His coffee, his rent, you name it. But then he decides to fly to Germany. And suddenly, his dollar only gets him about 90 cents in euros. He thinks, okay, that's fine. But then he lands in Vietnam. And all of a sudden, that same single dollar is worth 25,000 dong. It feels like play money at that point, right? Why on earth is money so inconsistent? Why can't we just say one of my coins is worth one of your coins and call it a day? And why do those digital boards at the airport change their numbers every single time you look at them? Today, I want to break this down for you like we're just grabbing a coffee, because the world of exchange rates is actually pretty fascinating once you strip away all the boring textbook talk. To really get why things are the way they are now, we have to look back a bit. For a long time, money wasn't just vibes and paper. It was actually linked to physical stuff, specifically gold. This was the famous gold standard. Back then, if a country wanted to print a bill, they had to have a specific amount of gold sitting in a vault to back it up. It kept things really stable, because you couldn't just print money out of thin air. But as the world started trading more and economies grew huge, keeping enough gold became a massive headache, especially when wars broke out and countries needed cash fast. By the 1970s, pretty much everyone ditched the gold and moved to what we call fiat money. Now, fiat is just a fancy word for because I said so. This money has value because the government says it does, and more importantly, because we all agree to believe them. Some people joke that it's just fake money, and in a way, they aren't wrong. Since it's not tied to gold anymore, its value comes down to one simple thing. Do people actually want it? By the way, if you don't know what fiat money is and you feel like you need more information about it, drop a little comment below, and if there are heaps of requests, I'll make a special video for it, I promise. Think of it like a limited edition pair of sneakers. If everyone is dying to get their hands on them, the price skyrockets. If they're ugly and nobody wants them, they end up in the clearance bin. Currencies work the exact same way, through supply and demand. If an economy is rocking it, like the US, people want that currency to buy things or invest there. If an economy is struggling, like what we saw with the total collapse in Venezuela, nobody wants that money, not even the people living there. So the value drops through the floor. One of the biggest things that kills a currency's value is inflation. You've probably felt this at the grocery stores all the time. Inflation is basically what happens when there's way too much money floating around compared to the actual stuff you can buy. Imagine if everyone in your neighborhood suddenly woke up with $1 million. The guy selling bread isn't going to keep charging $3. He's going to raise the price to $1,000 because everyone can afford it. Look at Zimbabwe for a wild, real-life example. Back in the 80s, their dollar was actually stronger than the US dollar. But then things went south. Bad policies, corruption, and the government just printing money like there was no tomorrow. By the 2000s, it got so bad that $1 US was worth something like 600,000 Zimbabwean dollars. People were literally carrying bags of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. Eventually, they just gave up on their own money for a while and started using US dollars or South African rands just to keep things functioning. If you're still here watching my video, it means you're the serious ones. So I have to do my best to give you as much information as I can as a big thank you. While you're watching this video, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next ones. Another thing that moves the needle is interest rates. You've probably heard people freak out when the central bank changes these. Think of interest as the rent you pay to borrow money. If a country has high interest rates, it's basically telling the world, hey, if you put your money in our banks, we'll give you a really big thank you gift in return. This attracts investors from all over the globe. They have to sell their own currency and buy that country's currency to get in on the deal, which drives the value up. But it's a balancing act. If a country makes interest rates too high, it's great for investors, but it sucks for regular people living there. It makes it way too expensive to get a car loan or a mortgage, which can tank the local economy. So, the people in charge are always playing this stressful game of not too high, not too low. Then you've got the overall vibe of a country. Investors are like cats. They're easily spooked. They want to put their money in places that are stable and predictable. Look at China's explosion in the late 70s. When they opened up, every company wanted to build factories there. To do that, they had to buy yuan to pay workers and buy land. That massive demand made the yuan super relevant. If a country is constantly changing its laws, having protests, or is drowning in debt, investors are going to run for the hills, and they'll take the currency's value with them. We also have to talk about shopping, or what economists call imports and exports. If Japan sells a ton of cool cars to the US has to pay for them, eventually increasing the demand for Japanese yen. A really famous example of this is the petrodollar. Years ago, the US struck a deal where global oil would mostly be traded in US dollars. Since every country needs oil to keep the lights on, every country suddenly needed to hold US dollars. That basically made the dollar the king of the world. On the flip side, tiny island nations that don't have much to sell to the world often find it easier to just use someone else's money, like the Australian or US dollar, because nobody really needs their local currency for trade. Some countries decide they don't want to deal with the roller coaster at all. They use a fixed value or pegging system. Take Belize, a small country next to Mexico, for example. They just decided that 2 Belizean dollars will always equal 1 US dollar. It's super simple for tourists, no math required. But the catch is that Belize's economy is now tied to the US. If the US dollar trips and falls, Belize goes down with it. They've basically hitched their wagon to a giant horse and have to go wherever it leads. Now, you might be thinking, this is all so complicated. Why don't we just have one global dollar and be done with it? It sounds like a dream, right? No exchange fees, no confusion. But look at the euro. It's great for traveling through Europe, but it's been a nightmare for some of the countries involved. When Greece had a massive financial crisis, they couldn't just print more money or change their own rules to fix it, because they were tied to the euro. Their problems became Germany's problems and France's problems. If the whole world used one currency, a mistake in a country halfway across the globe could ruin your local economy overnight. And honestly, having the strongest currency isn't always the goal. If your money is too expensive, nobody will buy your exports. China has actually been accused of keeping their currency's value low on purpose, just so their products stay cheap for the rest of the world. So, at the end of the day, the value of that paper in your pocket is really just a reflection of how much the rest of the world trusts your country's stability, how much they want your stuff, and what kind of rent your banks are paying. It's a giant, never-ending global popularity contest where the prizes are bread and houses. Write me a comment below where your country is and what currency you use. Do you think your currency has enough value to give you enough power to purchase your essentials? Write a comment for me, and I'll answer them all.